Level 1. Chinpira. Midnight. Outside a pachinko parlor. And you are still waiting. Someone handed you an envelope an hour ago. Nobody told you what's inside. You don't ask. Asking is for people who already belong. You've slept on 3 different floors this month. None of them yours. A cousin's spare room. A futon above a noodle shop. Once, a stairwell in a building you weren't supposed to name out loud. You call this training. Nobody calls it a job, because officially, you don't have one. You know the shape of the organization the way you know a distant mountain range. Large, permanent, and mostly out of reach. The Yamaguchi-gumi, the biggest family in the country, accounts for close to half of every Yakuza member left in Japan. You are not in it. Not yet. You are something closer to a rumor circling its edges, hoping to be noticed by the wrong kind of right person. There is no application, no interview, just errands. Carry this, wait there. Don't ask questions. You do these things for men who rarely say your name and never say thank you, because gratitude would suggest you did something worth thanking. And you haven't. Not yet. What you're doing is auditioning for a role nobody has offered you. Tonight, the envelope reaches its destination. A man takes it without looking at you. You linger for a second too long, hoping for something, a nod, a word, and get nothing. You walk back into the dark, telling yourself, this is how it starts for everyone. That somewhere above you, in rooms you've never entered, somebody is keeping a mental list of the boy who always shows up on time. Maybe that's true. Maybe it isn't. You have no way of knowing which men in this city hold that kind of memory, and which ones forget you the moment you're out of sight. Tonight, no one will remember your name. But somewhere in this system, someone always does. Eventually. Level 2. Kumiin/Kobun. A single cup of sake passes between 2 men. It goes around 3 times. Nobody speaks. When it's done, something has changed that no piece of paper could have recorded. This is Sakazuki, the ceremony that turns a stranger into family. Oyabun means literally father role. Kobun means child role. Not metaphorically. As a matter of internal law, you now have a father who is not your father, and you owe him the kind of obedience usually reserved for blood. You are Kumiin now. Kobun. The lowest rung with a name. Which means you are also the largest rung. The working class of an organization that likes to describe itself using the language of family while running on the economics of extortion. This structure is older than it looks. Its roots run back through 2 very different ancestors. The Takiya, traveling peddlers once granted near samurai status by the shogunate, permitted a surname and 2 swords, because they kept the market stalls in order. And the Bakuto, illegal gamblers ranked near the bottom of Edo-era society, who had nothing to offer but loyalty rituals of their own invention. One of those rituals still exists. If you break the code, steal from the family, embarrass your oyabun, fail badly enough, you don't get fired. You take a short blade to a folded white cloth, and you cut the top joint of your own little finger. You wrap it. You hand it to the man you answer to. It isn't only symbolic. That finger controls the tightest grip on a sword hilt. Take part of it, and you can no longer defend yourself alone. You become, permanently, someone who needs the group to survive. That was always the point. Nobody has explained this to you directly. You've only seen the results. A hand missing part of a finger, tucked casually into a pocket, like it's nothing. you are starting to understand that loyalty here isn't a feeling. It's collateral. He now has a father who isn't his father, and a family he can never formally leave. Level 3. Wakashu. A woman counts a few thousand yen into an envelope before you've even knocked. She's done this every month for 6 years. She doesn't look angry. She doesn't look surprised. She looks like someone paying a utility bill. This is Mikajime-ryo, protection money in name only, since nobody is protecting her from anything except the people collecting it. Reports suggest the amount scales with how illegal the business already is. A legitimate bar might pay a few thousand yen a month, while an underground casino can be charged close to 1 million. You collect from the legal end of that scale. Small envelopes, small shops, people with less money than you'd expect a crime family to bother with. You are Wakashu now, old enough in rank to be trusted with a route, young enough in the hierarchy to be the first one arrested if the route goes wrong. You are the hand the organization extends into the street, and the hand a police officer notices first. On your day off, you sit for hours in a chair while a tattoo artist works a handheld needle into your back, roughly 2 taps a second, the same design taking years to finish. This is tebori, the traditional method, slow and deliberate on purpose. Some men treat a finished bodysuit like a medal. You've barely started yours. Right now, it just hurts. And you keep coming back anyway. Because stopping halfway would say something about you that finishing does not. You think about the woman with the envelope more than you'd admit out loud. She isn't rich. She isn't the enemy anyone warned you about when you first got close to this world. She's just someone standing on the wrong side of a system that needed a payment collected. The same way you're someone standing on the side of it that has to collect. Neither of you designed this arrangement. Both of you show up for it anyway, month after month, because refusing costs more than paying. He isn't the villain of this story. He's just standing exactly where the system needs someone to stand. Level 4. Shatei. Someone calls you Aniki for the first time. Older brother. He means it. You have Kobun of your own now. Younger men who run the errands you used to run, who wait outside parlors you used to wait outside. This should feel like a rival. Mostly, it feels like exposure. Command, it turns out, is not a reward. It's a redistribution of risk. When one of your men skims money he shouldn't, that failure climbs up to you before it climbs anywhere else. When a rival crew tests your territory, you're the one who has to answer for the response. Nobody explained, back at your own Sakazuki ceremony, that the price of having people beneath you is carrying what they do wrong. You start to understand the shape of the whole structure a little more clearly from here. It isn't a ladder so much as a chain of debts, every man owing loyalty upward and covering exposure downward, all the way from the boy outside the pachinko parlor to a name you've never once heard spoken aloud in a public room. You still collect on the same streets you did as Wakashu, some months, when someone below you is sick or missing. The envelope hasn't changed. Only your position relative to it has. You're no longer the hand extended into the street. You're the one deciding whose hand gets extended. At night, you sometimes think about the men above you the way you used to think about the men above yourself 2 years ago. As figures who know something you don't yet, holding a shape of the organization you can't fully see from where you're standing. Command comes with a price no one mentions at the Sakazuki ceremony. Now someone else's mistakes are his. Level 5. Shateigashira. Nobody has ever handed you a map of your own territory. You carry it in your head instead. Every block, every bar, every shop that pays, and everyone still being convinced. Writing it down would be evidence. Memory is safer. You are Shateigashira now. A district is functionally yours, though you don't own a single deed to it. The money moving through your hands in a given month would embarrass most licensed small business owners in this city. None of it appears on a tax return with your name attached. This is the part of the hierarchy where the math stops being simple. You answer to a Wakagashira you rarely see in person. You're responsible for Shatei and Wakashu you see constantly. Men whose rent, whose tattoo debts, whose mistakes, all eventually become line items you have to account for. The organization calls this a family. The accounting calls it a liability structure with a very loyal workforce. You've started to notice something the men below you haven't yet. The bigger your district gets, the more precisely the government has already written a law with your specific role in mind. Officers know your face. They know roughly what you handle. They are, in a sense, waiting. Not for a reason to act, but for the moment acting becomes useful to them. You manage more money than most legitimate business owners in this district. You can be arrested for considerably less than most of them ever will be. There's a version of this job that looks, from a distance, like running a company. Territory, revenue, personnel under you, personnel above you. The difference is that a company's org chart doesn't include a flaw built entirely to make sure nobody outside it ever has to say your name in court. You don't think about that flaw often. You will, eventually. You're getting close enough to see it now. A level where the work stops being about the street entirely and starts being about paperwork nobody outside the family is ever meant to read. Level 6. Kaikei/Fuku Honbucho. A man in a plain suit checks a stack of invoices for hand towels. Delivery counts, prices, dates, everything in order. The ledger that actually matters is a different notebook, kept somewhere else entirely. Welcome to the professional class of the organization. You don't collect envelopes from bar owners anymore. You manage the businesses that make collecting envelopes look, on paper, like ordinary commerce. A towel delivery service, a construction supplier, a wholesale liquor account. According to reporting on how these operations function, front companies like these exist specifically to launder proceeds and make protection payments resemble invoices for legitimate goods. You didn't choose this job because you're less violent than the men below you. You chose it, or were chosen for it, because the organization needed someone who could survive contact with a different kind of enemy. The state. In 1992, Japan's anti-Boryokudan law came into force. Within a short window, 192 organizations were formally dissolved under it. That single piece of legislation did more to reshape this hierarchy than any rival gang ever managed with violence. Bosses who had never been touched by a bullet found themselves undone by a filing cabinet. You are the reason the family survived that filing cabinet. Every invoice you sign correctly is a small act of defense. Every dollar that moves through something resembling a legal channel is $1 the government cannot easily seize. Nobody applauds this work. There is no ceremony for a well-organized ledger. But you understand something the men still collecting envelopes on the street haven't fully absorbed yet. The war for this organization's survival isn't being fought with knives anymore. It's being fought with paperwork, timestamps, and invoices for hand towels nobody upstairs will ever personally deliver. The law didn't just outlaw violence, it made ordinary paperwork the new battlefield. Level 7. Shinging. A young man asks why he can't just open a bank account like anyone else. The lawyer across from him doesn't sigh, because he's had this exact conversation more times than he can count. Between 2010 and 2011, every one of Japan's 47 prefectures adopted what are now called Yakuza exclusion ordinances. These laws don't criminalize membership outright. Doing so directly would risk running into constitutional challenges. Instead, they target everyone around a member. A bank that knowingly opens an account for him, a landlord who knowingly rents to him, an ordinary citizen who does business with him, knowing who he is. All of them, under these ordinances, become legally exposed for the transaction itself. You are shingin, legal counsel, in effect, for an organization that legally shouldn't be able to function at all anymore. Your job isn't to defend anyone in a courtroom most days. It's to make sure the organization never has to be in one in the first place. You read every ordinance the moment it's passed. You know which prefectures enforce harder than others. You know exactly which bank branches have quietly refused service to men with your kind of employer. The young man in front of you doesn't understand yet why his own government built an entire legal architecture around men like him specifically. You do. It's the same reason the tattoo on his back exists. The same reason the finger he's already lost part of exists. The system needs him bound to it, needs him unable to simply walk into ordinary society and disappear. The state's exclusion laws didn't invent that binding, they just gave it new teeth. You explain what he can and can't do. No account under his real name, no apartment lease without a workaround, no casual transaction that leaves a paper trail connecting him to the family. He listens. He doesn't ask the deeper question, whether an organization requiring this many legal workarounds to exist is still, in any meaningful sense, powerful, or whether it has simply become very good at hiding how constrained it already is. You don't raise that question either. It isn't your job to raise it. It's your job to make sure nobody upstairs ever has to answer it in front of a judge. An entire legal system was rewritten just to make people like this necessary. Level 8. Psycho-Common. You speak for the boss in every room he will never personally enter. That is the entire description of your job, and it is far larger than it sounds. You are Psycho-Common, senior advisor, the closest non-family voice to the man at the very top. Beneath the boss and his designated successor, you exist to negotiate with other families, to smooth conflicts before they become wars, to represent an organization built on roughly 20 major umbrella groups and hundreds of smaller ones, each with its own boss, its own territory, its own grievances waiting to surface. There is no formal document naming you as anything. Your authority exists entirely in the fact that when you speak, everyone in the room understands whose voice is actually being carried through you. That's real power. It is also, you're beginning to realize, power with almost no protection attached to it. Unlike the men below you, you're not shielded by distance from the organization's decisions. You often are the decision, delivered in person. Unlike the Wakashu above you, you have no formal claim to succession, no guaranteed seat if the balance of power shifts. You are trusted completely and secured by nothing at all. You've started noticing tension between families that hasn't broken into the open yet. Old resentments about territory, about how headcounts get reported upward, about which faction gets credit for revenue and which gets blamed for losses. None of it has a name yet. You suspect from experience that it eventually will. Proximity to the top of this hierarchy was supposed to feel like a rival. Instead, it feels like standing closer to the blast radius of a decision you don't get to make. You carry messages between men who are, on paper, family. You've seen enough to know that family, in this world, is a structure of convenience first and blood substitute second. Durable exactly as long as it benefits everyone bound by it, and not one day longer. You go home at night to an apartment nobody officially associates with your role. You've learned to prefer it that way. The less visibly connected you are to any single decision, the more useful you remain to everyone making them. Proximity to power, it turns out, is not the same thing as being protected by it. Level 9. Wakashu. In August of 2015, roughly 3,000 men chose a side in a war that hadn't officially been declared yet. They broke away from the Yamaguchi-gumi and formed a rival organization, the Kobe Yamaguchi-gumi, splitting the largest crime family in Japan for the first time in more than 3 decades. What followed lasted the better part of a decade. By the time both sides finally stood down, more than 90 people connected to the conflict were dead. You are Wakashu now, First Lieutenant, the boss's designated successor, the man who runs daily operations across an organization this large. This is the closest you will ever come to holding everything at once. It is also the position every rival faction, every splinter group, and every ambitious subordinate is most interested in removing. You didn't choose this rank so much as survive your way into it. Every level below you was a test of loyalty. This level is a test of whether loyalty, once earned, can survive contact with money, ego, and a boss whose decisions you don't always get to question out loud. You studied the 2015 split more carefully than anyone below you has bothered to. Not as history, as a warning. It didn't start with betrayal. It started with smaller grievances. How headcounts were reported, whose faction got blamed when revenue dropped, whose relatives were installed in positions others felt they'd earned. Small resentments, left unresolved, until 3,000 men decided the family they'd sworn loyalty to no longer looked like the one they'd joined. You run the daily machinery of an organization that could, in theory, fracture the same way again, for reasons just as small. You watch every faction leader a little more closely than protocol technically requires. You've learned not to mistake a smile for an answer. If the boss above you falls, or falters, or simply grows too old to hold the center together, there are 2 ways this ends for you. You inherit an empire built on obedience, or you become the next name added to a body count that started, the last time, over something that looked survivable, right up until it wasn't. He is one disagreement away from either inheriting everything or becoming the next name in a body count. Level 10. Kumicho. A car turns into a private entrance away from the street so that no camera will ever capture the man inside it. This is not caution. This is the entire job description. You are Kumicho, Supreme Boss, Oyabun of Oyabun. The reason 9 layers of men below you exist at all. On paper, you hold more authority than anyone else in this hierarchy. In practice, you are the only person in it who can no longer do the ordinary things everyone below you still manages to do. You cannot open a bank account under your own name. You cannot walk into certain shops that have posted signs specifically barring men like you. You cannot appear in public without triggering a chain of legal exposure for anyone who acknowledges you. Every rank beneath you. The Shingin, who reads new ordinances the day they pass. The Psycho Common, who speaks for you in rooms you'll never enter. The Wakashu, who runs your daily operations while watching for the next fracture, exists, in the end, to keep this arrangement standing. Not to serve your comfort. To make sure you are never personally reachable by the state, by a rival, or by a camera. You have lived to see what this costs the organization as a whole, not just yourself. By the end of 2025, the number of Yakuza members and associates nationwide fell to 17,600, the 21st consecutive year of decline, down from more than 80,000 as recently as 2009. Your world isn't shrinking because someone finally defeated it. It's shrinking because the men who once filled these ranks are aging out, and fewer are choosing to take their place. That same December, the Yamaguchi-gumi, your family, in every sense the word, still means anything here, publicly declared an end to the 10-year war that had already cost more than 90 lives. Not a victory, a ceasefire between two sides too depleted to keep fighting. You built 9 layers to protect one man. In the end, they only proved how alone that man always was. The boy outside the pachinko parlor in level 1 will never meet the man in the private car in level 10. He doesn't need to. Every rank between them was built for the same reason: to keep this system standing. One loyalty, one envelope, one folded cloth at a time. That December, the largest family in this world admitted the war was over. Not because either side won, because there weren't enough men left to keep fighting it. Whether you're the boy hoping to be noticed, or the man no one is allowed to see, the family was never built to make you free. Only obedient, at a different price, on a different floor. The cycle continues. A van stops outside a small bar in Osaka before sunrise. The driver isn't delivering towels. He's collecting an envelope folded inside an invoice. Nobody at the bar looks up. This has happened every month for 6 years. This is the Yakuza, Japan's oldest crime family, bound by a father-son bond that isn't blood, but is enforced like it is. The Yamaguchi-gumi alone commands nearly half of every member left in the country. But the most powerful man in this hierarchy has a problem no money can fix. He is the one person in it no longer allowed to be seen. By the end, you'll understand why the safest rank here